All right. I think class is gonna start now, and it's in session. Mister Wickman is here, and take it away, buddy.
So, today we're gonna continue to learn about the factions of Mythos. And here, I'm gonna take this story really fast, a lot faster than last time, you know? So we just like uh, we have you know, do it one more time to repeat ourselves, to learn the story. The two great being Helios and Selene, they created the whole of Mythos. Helios created all the things, the materia, the mountains, and the seas, and Selene created all the beings. For example, humans and dwarves, and all the elves. But she ended up loving them so much that Helios got envious, and so envious that he thought, okay, how can I win back Celine's focus to me? It's our creation. She should focus on me. So he created some other beings on this earth, like orcs and different kinds of evil creatures. So they started to fighting each other. Um, But this kind of got out of hands, and four great gods were created somehow. Hopefully, we learn more about this in the future. The four great gods Eryther, Necronominus, Arethyr, and Poxus were created. And they started to ruin everything. They kind of got out of hand for Helios. So Selene created the four great beasts of Cylona, Aetheron, Leodysseus, and Basilia. So the Great War happened there, and the end of the Great War, the four gods were banished from Mythos, or banished. They were somehow they were removed from the world of Mythos, and at the same time, the four great beasts disappeared as well. And that's where we are right now when we start with a faction of Arethyr.
I just wish I had that recorded so I could listen to it at night because I think it would soothe me. Just listening to a meal talk, you know, it's
You
just
can
like
call me anytime.
it was wonderful. I'm so
Okay.
calm and happy now.
Oh, that's good. I'm happy. I like that. So this is the world of Mythos on the map, wonderfully drawn by Nate Barch. And since we're having a focus on Eryther today, we're gonna have a focus on this part of the map.
All right.
And I'll zoom in here, and here we see, for example, we start from the bottom there with Aether Hold. We have Gob Hollow, where the goblins reign. We have Iron Hold and the Graven Mountains. We're talking about some of the dwarf factions, dwarf people here. And Mercurius. Many of us know about the Mercurian warriors that we like, that looks like Spartans, for example. So let's start. This is a lot of figures, and not we're gonna skip some of them, or we're actually gonna move on pretty quick on some of these. But we start with the time before the return of the great gods. So the first big great war has happened. All the gods are gone, and all the great beasts are gone. And Gorgo Aetherblade is the one who is ruling the faction of Arethyr. And guys, what do you know about Gorgo Aetherblade?
That nobody knows him, right?
Yes.
Nobody
Nobody.
knows who he is.
Yep.
I mean, what kind of race he is.
Now, people assume there's a lot of guessing due to his original neck piece that he's a skeleton because the original toy came with a skeleton neck peg. Right?
Correct. That's all basically what we know, and we don't even know what his goal is to I mean to run the faction of Eryther. Why does he want the god of Eryther to return? We don't know that. But so you see, he is the one leading the faction. We're gonna go through the queens and kings of these three main races, I would say, of the Arethyr faction, and the queen of the orcs, Queen Urxa. She's the one that she early on realized that where Arethyr came from the beginning. It's like, I think it would benefit the orcs to be a part of this this warmongering faction. We could definitely benefit from this. Okay. And from the goblins, we have King Noglin, who very similar also realized that this could be benefit. The goblins, Noglin and the dwarf king, Bromden, both very, very rich kingdoms, very wealthy kings, who saw that we could benefit from being a part of this. So we'd be happy to join. The thing with Bromden, though, is that he wasn't what you would call a bad guy from the beginning, you know?
Right.
And of course, the goblins and the dwarves, they fought in between. So here they kind of found a way, like, we could follow Arethyr together. We don't have to fight among each other. But being a part of this bigger thing, we can, just benefit from this and grow richer.
And King Bromden, if I remember right, is a brother to one of the other heroic dwarves. Am I right? I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
That's good.
Yeah.
Come in. You need to show your knowledge about these factions. Okay?
Yeah.
There's
Thord. Yes, it's Thord. That's right. Ironjaw. Duh.
So the brothers, and so you could say that they kind of went different paths here.
Thank you, Rick.
You won't find Thord in this faction.
No.
So it's like Bromden went the dark path. Went on the dark path. Okay. Same here. We have both are Shadowhorn, who is a cousin of Thord Ironjaw. So he should probably be in the good faction, but they say that he has nothing to do with them. He prefers this faction. Okay. So his clan Shadowhorn was a part, like an alliance with Leodicius, but he found a big hatred for Thord. Basically, we don't know the conflict there, or I don't know it right now, at least.
Maybe we will.
Yeah. And the last, hopefully. Oh, we will. I'm looking forward to that book by Jeremy.
The book. There's so much. Yes. There's so much that can be fleshed out in these stories that, that book and maybe stuff that even follows that book has so much potential for some pretty great entertainment.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, some of these things that we're talking about now, they probably might change, when they realized, okay, this won't fit into the bigger picture, since they have fleshed out the story a lot more. But then there is basically just one more dwarf in the whole faction. That's the Caven dwarf, which is a Legion builder soldier. So even though we have King Bromden, we don't have more than these 3 dwarfs in the whole faction. And somehow I thought there were more. But when I started going through this, they're not.
I mean, there could be 3 million cavern dwarfs, so there really could be,
Yeah.
True.
Plus, you're splitting up like your dwarves, so to say. So, in other words, all the goblins we know are in this faction, but not all the dwarves are in this faction. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Yeah. So how I did it now is like, now we shift the focus to the goblins. So we focus on the goblin characters here. Gonks, one of the commanders. You could almost think that he might be just one of the brutes, big and strong, but he is a true leader who leads the troops, Mm-hmm. Deep into the mountain. Bad breath? He's a bad breath?
Doesn't he have bad breath? Because he has that mask.
Oh no, I think it says in his bio he's got bad teeth and he's subconscious.
Oh, okay.
Self-conscious.
Well, if he's got bad teeth, he probably has bad breath too.
It's possible.
Something that you can say about his characteristic, not about his breath, but that is his skill to see who would do best in what kind of position. Like that's kind of his strategic skills. Another commander. We have two commanders here among the goblins, and that's Thump. Who is a relative to Noglin.
Ah, little nepotism, huh?
Yep, it's actually Noglin's nephew. So you remember when this figure arrived? It was in the Wastelands wave. So there was this big battle going on in the Wastelands. We only know some of that, but he was the commander from Gob Hollow for that war, that fight there. You know the Wastelands around Bjorngar, I would
So
say.
definitely a subordinate to Gonks.
That we don't know. They could be both commander. We don't know if that's a subordinate. They can be two commanders with the same. We don't know that. Though, if you ask my gut feeling, Gonks is the higher ranking one. But that's maybe I don't know. That's
No
my
proof.
feeling.
No proof. of
No
that.
proof.
Right.
Okay, my favorite goblin somehow.
I love
still.
Nubnik.
Yeah. So if we know something about Nubnik, I mean, goblins in general are quite disgusting and quite, cruel, and he's even, I mean, horrible counted among goblins. I love that, and the fact that he is an assassin is a cool thing. One sentence that I remember from is that he takes a perversive joy in each and every kill, and that's a sentence like this is not a toy line for kids. Like he's a perversive joy in each and every kill.
Look at that face. I mean,
Yeah,
he's he ain't right.
he ain't right. He ain't right. Okay, Swig. Well,
Swig.
yeah, he's quite a new one. He's an alchemist, and basically the goblins have alchemists that are trying to make potions to make the other goblins, I mean, stronger, faster, or even give them the ability to fly and stuff like that. But what is also clearly noted is that it not always goes according to plan. So it's not like we're presenting Swig, the perfect alchemist. He can be like, whatever can happen.
Right.
Here's another one that I know many people like. Snag, the thief.
Love this guy.
What do you love about this guy?
Just his first of all, his color scheme. That blue hood just always set him off and just made him look cool. But I mean, he's got that different looking face that's different than most of the goblins, and just looks like he's sneaky and up to no good. And even his bio is great because he's the thief and he collects things. And now he's always been. He may still be my all-time favorite goblin.
Really cool. He was actually part of a big lot that I got of figures when I started collecting. And he was one of the pieces I had there, and opened it and then decided to sell him. Big mistake, of course. But I mean, you're young and stupid. This was 3 years ago.
Well, you were definitely younger 3 years ago.
Yeah. So
Jesse's telling us that the bio does say that Nox is the commander of the goblin forces.
that is true. But you also have to
And
take
that
into
Thump is the commander of a small army of elite goblins forces sent to Gorgo.
exactly. One thing that I think we need to take into consideration here, though, is that in the beginning, when there only were like four goblins, then you didn't have like all of these different characters. So maybe you just said commander, but I do still think that is the right thing, that Gongs is the higher commander. But I would just I would just assume when you start to you have 4 characters. One is the commander, one is the thief, or whatever. Then you start to build 10 more, and then you say that this is a commander or something else. Then you don't go back and change these bios from the beginning. Like
Well,
there are many who says that this is the most fearsome or most brutal character in this faction, and then a year later it says like this character is the most feared and brutal. So it's.
Yeah, maybe with the book they'll do some edits and go
I
back
think
and
so.
kind of retro.
But thank you, Jesse, for that. And that's totally
Yeah,
agree with you.
Snag's awesome because he has that classic look. He just and it's very different than the other goblins.
Yeah.
The long nose, the bonnet, the blue bonnet, hat. He's really cool.
Besides being a thief, we can say that Noglin also likes Snag. That's something that says like he, not King Noglin. He enjoys having Snag around.
yeah, because Snag brings him stuff, if I remember
Yeah,
right.
probably, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of love for Snag in the chat right now, just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
It's like everyone saying that, that Snag is definitely the one of the favorites of the goblins.
I think it's funny you just don't realize, you think when everybody says a Mythic Legion's goblin, you think you know what they look like. But when you really sit down and look at them, they're all very different.
They are.
Swig has a completely different face.
Mm-hmm.
Snag obviously has a completely different face than Nubnik or whoever. It's just there's a lot of what do you want to say?
Individuality.
Yeah, individuality, and there's a lot of leeway which is cool because that means that when Treadaway is sculpting the next one, he's not beholden to a certain look. He can kind of get more creative.
Yeah, you can tell.
I would definitely recommend everyone to go to sourcehorseman.com and read the full bios. Read the full bios of the characters and look at the photos of the characters. So you can appreciate them in full. Thwick, the archer. Well, you could summarize his whole bio into he's famous for his being a great archer and his grin. So just leave everyone with that for now. And here we have the classic Goblin soldier, the Goblin Legion builder. Yeah, I think a lot of collectors have a lot of these around. Then we got the deluxe Goblin Legion builder, who is also a soldier. And then there is just one more goblin I'd like to add here. And this one I'm not sure about. This is the Bog Goblin, who is of another race. He is a greater goblin. That's another kind of species. There are a lot of different kinds of greater goblins. I'm not sure that you would have the Bog Goblins being a part of the goblins that King Noglin rules.
Yeah.
I don't know this, but I leave this to everyone. So this is not a single character, but the Bog Goblins are, well, they really take joy into being a part of this horrible army. They're feared. They spit black liquid that I think it's called black bile. Something that
Sure.
it's horrible. And at the same time, they're classified as being assassins. So interesting.
Who knows?
Very interesting.
Now,
Those things are. I've always been a fan of the Bog Goblin.
Yeah, he's super cool. Why wouldn't you throw the Hellfire Goblin up there too? If you have the Bog Goblin.
Because the Hellfire Goblin is coming later, because he is part of what is coming when Arethyr arrives back from the dimension that he has been kept prisoned. So we'll come back to him
Okay.
at the end.
Sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. That's a good question. So we're going to the Orcs. Warthog. Warthog might be one of my favorites in this faction. I think he's badass. I love the parts as a customizer, but the character and how he's built, I love this one. He's both a warlord and a trainer, you know. So he's the one who trains the orc soldiers into becoming better, into becoming who they are. He serves the legions, but his true allegiance is fully with Queen Urxa. But during his role as a trainer, there was this orc that he trained and that came from nowhere and became quite successful. And that was Ursoc.
Yes.
So during the training from Gorthok, even though Gorthok is for Queen Urxa, here we have Ursoc. So can any one of you guess why I put Ursoc up here and not among the orcs down there? On lower down on the map. Okay, maybe who is it? Okay, Len, I've seen your arm. Please.
Oh, because he's a general.
Yeah, he's a general. That's good. Do you have something more you want to say about that?
No.
I was going to ask you the question when you went right to Queen Urxa, because the way I remember reading the bio is he's in charge and she is like usurping a section of his troops to kind of think that he may not be leading them in the proper direction. That's what I remember, but school me on this.
So he is definitely, I would say, higher ranking than Queen Urxa. But that is not from where he came, you know. He climbed in the ranks for him being such a awesome soldier, I would guess, you know. Both because of his intellect and who he was, and for his strength and all those qualities. So Gorgo Aetherblade kind of took him up, you know, and put him like, you shall be here, kind of like, you know. Mm-hmm. So then it doesn't matter then that there's a queen among the orcs that's called Urxa, because she is still below Gorgo Aetherblade.
Got it.
And here we have one other orc that I put next to Ursoc, and that is Urko. I kind of always thought that Urko was a character, a named character, and not a group of orcs. But reading the bios now, I realize that this is not one character. The Urkos are mindless savages with a single-minded purpose within the ranks of Gorgo Aetherblade, it says. And their loyalty is more specific to Ursoc than the greater good. I mean, the greater cause with Gorgo Aetherblade. So that's why I put that orc kind of troop up there with Ursoc. Continuing with the orcs, and this is, when I say continue with the orcs, I still show something that is not an orc. So I was thinking about putting the ogres. This is Kursoc, who is named the Interpreter and General. You probably could put Kursoc like the general among all the ogres, if you would. But he's also a lot among the orcs. So he's part of that, but I would say that his rank is higher. His skill of knowing the languages, both from the orcs and the ogres, makes him the perfect one to communicate between these different groups.
Interesting, they would have different languages.
Yes.
Yeah, I never realized that.
Actually, it says more. I reread something here. Maybe the orcs and ogres are speaking more the same, but Kursoc knows civilized languages like others. So he can communicate without these, these orcish languages, I would presume, okay? So that makes him important when it comes to communicating.
I mean, he does look like he could be smart. Like, picture him with a monocle.
Yeah, I like that. And for this reason, I actually put the Ogre Legion Builder, who is classified as a soldier. I put him among them. But if we'll see more ogres in the future, maybe this will change.
If there was a figure that was responsible for me getting into painting figures, it's probably that one. Because when I got it, his armor just looked so fun to paint. And, I just was like, all right. And that, I think, he's definitely one of the motivations for me to pull out my paints and start painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would too if I had one. Instead, I repainted other ogre-sized figures. Anyway.
So the orcs speak Orcish, and the ogres speak Orcish, but like Gorgo Etherblade doesn't probably. So because that's what they're saying, that what's his name here? Kurzog is like a translator of Orcish.
Yeah. Okay. But I would say more civilized languages. I mean, other languages outside the faction even.
Right, like he could speak to the dwarfs who are on his side. So if they're in like a grand battle, he can be the one that can speak to the different races that don't speak Orcish.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
That's interesting. I had to follow up on that. That's cool.
But I'm not saying that orc and ogre speak different language. That was probably something that I misread into it, So now we have the Legion Builder. The first Orc Legion Builder classified as a soldier. And we have the Orc Legion Builder 2, who is a soldier as well, but that is a 2.0 figure. And then we have the Orc Legion Builder 3, but who changed name into Colosseum Orc because that is what people started calling it. So it is the Legion Builder 3, but
he was offered during the Colosseum wave.
Yeah, and he's classified as a gladiator. So here we're talking about the Mercurian Colosseum. That part I talked about the Mercurian part of the map. So during the Colosseum, when you wanted to bring something really action onto the arena, you unleashed a number of Colosseum orcs, with their carnage and bloodlust.
Right.
So these are not. I wouldn't say that any of the orcs are fun guys, but these are even less fun. And then we have this newly released deluxe male orc builder, who hasn't gotten a role. It actually said because we can do whatever we want with this. This is the deluxe builder who has a lot of parts, and I just included one of the photos here, and then one photo for the deluxe female orc builder. Did you guys get a lot of these?
I got a couple of the males. I got one of the female, I think. So not as many as I would like to have, because I really like orcs and I really like having a lot of builders. But these weren't cheap, so at the time, so I, like a lot of other people, probably didn't get a lot volume of these guys, but they're great figures.
Yeah, definitely great figures. So we're gonna pause the orcs for a bit now, come back to them later, but we're gonna turn into the Black Knight. The Black Knight also was released during the Colosseum wave, and are knights guards at the Colosseum, So if you're prisoned there to be fighting at the arena, and you get the idea that I don't want to do this. I think I'm gonna try to escape. Then that is probably even a worse idea, because these black knights will, you know, kill you instantly. and I love these characters. I mean, they're all black is just so amazing.
You know, I don't know if your guys' mind does this, but when you're telling us about these things, you're thinking Colosseum and you're thinking knights or guards as knights and everything. I'm just picturing a movie, you know, or some kind of a cartoon with that you could watch, and us Legions fans could be like, "Oh, there's the Black Knights. They're guards at the Colosseum," you know, and I don't know. It just seems like it.
Wouldn't
They're
that be
so
amazing?
rich. It's so rich, fertile ground for some good stuff.
Yeah.
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 I totally agree, and I, you know, one can hope for what the future will bring when it comes to these.
Yeah.
We are gonna keep the Black Knights are humans, and we have two more humans in this faction. One of them is Juno the Crusher, the Barbarian. Stephen, I happen to know this is your favorite character. Is that so still?
It is one of my favorite characters.
One of your
yes.
favorites.
You know, she's not my favorite character in the whole line, but if I had to pick my top 5, she probably would be in there.
So what do you know about her?
I know that she has a history with Atlas, and I know that she's the Crusher, and she I think was taken in by Gorgo at some point, and I always found that to be fascinating. Also her stripped down barbarian look. I mean, that's what does it for me. People know that. So
Yeah, something is messed up with her, I think. I mean,
yeah,
if you get it, and it's like, I think that's a part that I like about the character. You know, that Atlas the Conqueror tried to take care of her after she lost her parents, but then they kind of have, you know, we don't know what the falling out was, you know, but the part came when she was saved by Arethyr from a horde of skeletons, you know. So this is interesting. I'm not sure we will ever know the rest of the story, but it would be fun if that was a segment, because the character is interesting.
it is. You know, and you know, you get these. I picture myself if I were to sit down and play with these characters, these toys.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. If you're gonna pay attention to the lore and the bios, I don't know. I never thought it was fun to act out the lore and the bios. You take the story forward, and at least that's what I wanted to do. So if I were to be sitting on the floor, Indian style, just playing with these characters, and she would be a redeemable character to me. She would be one of those characters that ends up seeing the light and going back to Atlas and fighting with the noble bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you display her among the Eryther figures?
Yes.
You do that? Okay.
I do, yeah. Because I'm not sitting on the floor playing with them.
Sure.
Well,
Sure, you're not.
at least no one sees that.
Yeah, you can't admit that, of course. So we have one more human, and that is Lady Averona, who is considered to be an evil knight. So the Averona,
wonder how you can tell she's evil.
the red eyes.
Exactly.
You tricked me into actually giving a serious answer to that. I'm so sorry.
She's
I'm
like
such a fool.
She's like the most evil person, or evil-looking character.
I absolutely love this character. You know, you know the story of the Averona family, that they supported Arethyr during the time when he was, you know, bossing around, and she still wanna, you know, her family wanna. They get kind of dragged into the mud when he didn't win, you know. So coming back with she's fully supporting the evil demon, the evil god, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she's considered to be even the cruelest in her family, even. So among Maybe we'll see her brother or her parents. Maybe we'll see more from the Verona family with this wonderful. What is it? Burgundy color that they have.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like it almost dips into almost purple burgundy. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love that color. I could definitely see us getting other characters, but then again, I don't know. So these are the 3 humans. Here I'm just gonna talk about some Legion builder. The warrior, he's a warrior. He's just massive tusk, destroying. Not
Super
one of the
fun.
most interesting, but very, very just ramming stuff.
Yep.
And the trolls, big monsters, of course. And we know that there are many, many races of trolls that are different kinds of. I mean, there are some that are heroic, and there are some that are just totally neutral to everything. And then we have, like, for example, the stone trolls and forest troll that are kind of like, part of the Arethyr, the monsters.
Sure.
Archimedes. He is one of the earlier figures that I got. And he is interesting. I mean, just look at his color compared to the rest of the figures so far in the whole faction. Like
Yeah.
a blue
Yeah.
cyclop, and he's the only cyclop, I think, of all factions.
He is
So-
he is the blacksmith.
He is the blacksmith, and his title is the chief overseer. So, yeah, he's a strong warrior, but I would say the blacksmith part is probably the most important thing here. Fury Clan Orcs. I put him here in the Orcs because I see him as he's still an Orc, but the Fury Clan probably have more races, and we'll see that now. But the Fury Clan Orc are intelligent, and they're both savage and intelligent, and that's interesting. I would never consider these to be intelligent if I just saw them like this. So considered to be assassins. And moving on from actually not moving on, we're staying here with the Fury Clan, and we're gonna talk. I'm gonna read this. This is straight from the website. Known as much for their precision and intellect as for their brutal efficiency with which they carry out their missions and dispatch their enemies, the Fury Clan are amongst the most feared warriors in all of Mythos. And then there is the Furious Four. So, Steven,
Yeah.
who is this? This is Lord Bishadi the Alpha, Lord and Commander of the Furious Four.
Yep.
We're not talking about commander of a big army. He's the commander of 4 guys.
Right. Yeah.
That was a
Couple of schmucks. The other 3 guys. They're 4 guys. They're just, couple of bumbling idiots, and Lord Bishadi's trying to keep it all together. That's how I see it. But
yeah.
he's great looking, isn't he?
He is very handsome. Below that helmet. Actually, he's also a human.
Yep.
So,
He's a human. I think he's actually man. Doesn't it just say man on
it
his bio?
says man, actually.
Yeah. I think it does.
Okay, we continue with this group. Pitorion the Enforcer.
Mm-hmm. He's kind of loud and kind of obnoxious. Just more about like showing off than actually getting stuff done. That's how I see this character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the 4 Horsemen studio also would like to say that him being an enforcer is kind of like really getting into it, So I just want to add that to your description.
His only weakness is a glass of water.
So for you who don't know, these Furious 4 characters that we're talking about are all tribute figures to well, Steven here in the chat, and he's co-host of the My Wife's Going to Kill Me podcast. So they were tribute figures at LegionsCon 2022.
Yeah.
You can actually buy them afterwards as well.
Yeah. Super
So,
fun.
Yeah. How I mean, you have said this many times, but now you know how Walter feels, who has just now gotten a figure. How did it feel? Like you're gonna be a toy.
It felt, I don't know. It felt so. I don't know how to put it into words. It's just, it's very much joy. I don't know. That sounds probably pretty lame, but when I saw that, and like I've told people when this happened, I think all of us thought it was a joke, and I certainly did when this was sprung on us, and because it was sprung on us that when this happened. But when I did set in that this was real, it made me so happy. And I guess, it's funny, these figures don't look anything like us, but there was such care in the bios that were written by Jeremy that it really made them even that much more special. So yeah, just something that always puts a smile on my face every time I think about it. So I'm sure Walter feels the same way, and everybody else that's ever gotten a tribute figure,
Yeah. Well said. We move on to Uwit, the herbologist. What is his specialty, Stephen?
Herbs and remedies and things of flora and fauna. Not much for fighting. He's the one that you gotta be like, come on, get over here. We need some backup. And he's like smelling a flower.
It actually says that he's been using plants and stuff to damage his foes, but the overwhelming exposure of it himself has kind of messed him up as well.
He's a little faded.
He's a little bit faded. One that is even more faded, I guess, would be the fourth character of the Furious Four. That is Pelvicus. And below him here you can see that his role is, and then there are just a couple of question marks, like, what role does he have? What do you know about him, Stephen?
I know that he brings something to the table because if you don't have Pelvicus at the table with you, there's something missing. It's just very hard to put your finger on what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really love this bio too because of, and we've already talked about it on this show. He's part of the Fury clan, but he's also part of the blood magic or the.
He was part of the congregation of Necronominus.
Yes. He got kicked out for misreading texts.
Yeah.
Special texts. So
yeah. So he but still you don't know what he brings to the table. So nobody can say what his role is and what he's doing.
Can't put your finger on it. You just know you want him there.
And then there is actually another one, a part of the Furious Four, or at least from the from the Fury clan, and that is Cody Cat, whose role is also unknown, and he is obviously a tribute to your podcast, the one who's handling he's setting up everything, I guess, but
Producer.
You don't know if he's ever be there in time. So Cody Cat's bio says that you don't know if he'll ever show up and what he's doing and if you can count on him. So he's even less reliable than Pelvicus. So
yeah, he is less reliable than Pelvicus. He's missing more than Pelvicus usually. So, but we're glad to have him when he's there. Yeah, no, this is fun. People ask me sometimes who my favorite faction is, and it really puts me in a bind because my character that holds my namesake is part of Arethyr, but I'm a barbarian guy, so Noble Bear has always been my favorite faction. So I'm really torn, It's like, what do I say?
what do you say?
I think I have to go with Arethyr because I'm part of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be a traitor if it wasn't Arethyr.
Well, you would, but you can still say it. But you would be. So, okay, we are almost done with the faction.
Yeah.
That this is a huge faction, so no other faction will take this long, obviously. Here we go. Gorthok, the strategist and the favorite character of our dear friend Curtis. His absolute favorite figure, Gorthok. So he's a shadow orc. Yeah, I'm gonna read this. Grotesque, inbred creatures that are born deep below the surface, cursed to live a life mining for metals and forging deadly weapons. But he is also the strategist and the one that the faction of Eryther sent to the Covenant of Shadow, to the meeting where the four evil faction would plot and decide how to bring back the evil gods. So he has a quite important role. And after the Covenant of Shadows, the dark god of Arethyr returned.
Yeah.
So you could say this pretty, you can summarize this that he's war. He's war. He's just, evil and war. How would you say?
Len, you've been quiet. You got any thoughts?
On Arethyr?
Yeah.
Oh, he's metal, man. Right? He's war.
Totally metal.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's like the first thing you think of when you look at him from the very get-go, is this guy's metal. And he does that's an epic weapon, right, Emil? He has
that is the Aether Blade. And we can see that, Gorgo Aether Blade has the Aether Blade, but that is what the weapon that Arethyr is wielding. So there are more stories to read here. More info to find out.
This is when, as far as a toy, view on this, I feel like this is when the Horsemen took a big step with Mythic Legions. Was at this wave. I think there was it's almost like a before Arethyr and after Arethyr to me. As far as just the level of craziness, it's like they ratcheted it up right here. It's like, okay, from here on out, we're just gonna keep pulling away. Got the gas pedal down, and we're going as fast as we can. This figure represents that to me.
Yeah, not just the figure itself, but the whole environment and community, right? Everything ramped up after that. The collecting, the whole everything around it.
Yeah.
I remember the first show. Again, I love shows. Love the live shows and toy shows, the events that the Horsemen do. And the first one that they did when Arethyr was available was a madhouse. It was crazy. Lines out the door. It was hot. And people just lined up for it like no other show I've seen, even to date. It was madness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a super brutal figure.
Yeah.
So, and here he comes with his steed, Aethon, that doesn't have any bio. It's called the Smoldering Steed, which is also a badass steed.
Yeah. That might have been our first look at any steed. I can't remember if they showed us Balius before that one, but
I think we saw Balius at right, like a mock-up really early. I remember seeing a horse at, I want to say at the first Legions Con. They had a horse on display, and I think it was Balius.
But I can remember being home watching G-Con that year because G-Con really, in the beginning, was always just kind of it was just the Horsemen together with a few friends, sure. And they broadcasted it over YouTube. And, I remember when they showed this, I remember being where I was sitting when I saw this horse and this character, yeah. and I was just like, wow, how in the world, this is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Me too. I remember seeing this whole live
Yeah.
outside my. Yeah, that was summertime. That was when the new waves were in. I mean, it didn't have to be November.
They
It
used
was
to do it
summertime.
during San Diego Comic-Con, if I remember right.
Okay.
Was when they stopped going to San Diego, then they started doing G-Con, if I remember. Then it morphed into Mythic Weekend.
Right.
So, we have this now. Belphegor, the Dark Prince. So, when Arethyr was prisoned, well, if you call it the prison realm, or in Belphegor's bio, it's called the prison realm. But anyway, that place where the gods were banished to, Belphegor was a native inhabitant there, you know, and he helped weaken the portals to make it possible for Arethyr to come back. And Arethyr acknowledged that, and when they got back, crowned him the Dark Prince. So that's why you see here on the chart that I made is that okay, we have Gorgo and Belphegor here. Who
Yeah.
will be the one who is the second in command, or I mean, after Arethyr? And we don't know much about this conflict.
You think those dudes fight?
I think they want to, both of them. I think they want to seriously fight each other. I mean, they fight everything else, of course. That's not the question. I'm not falling for that one. But I mean, I think they want to fight each other, but kind of like seeing what Arethyr says, you know?
Yeah. So, question I have for you guys. Why is that? Can you hear that on my end? No? Okay. Must not be able to. Len, on
Yes.
your Belphegor, wings or no wings?
No wings.
I mean,
Why is he supposed to have wings?
no,
Wings.
but he came. That wave came with the big red wings that fit him perfectly, and a lot of people put wings on their Belphegor.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely wings.
You have wings on your Belphegor.
Yeah, and when I must admit this, when I saw it, I was more like, well, it's pretty much the same parts as Purplor. At that time, I thought like that. When it arrived, I was like, this is just something totally epic. These parts match, and they create something totally awesome. So
Yeah,
and
his
with the wings-
paints with the blue highlights or fades, or it just looks
yeah,
like you can't even really see it in the pictures. But for people who own him, they know what we're talking about. He's amazing.
he's probably one of the most powerful looking characters, I think.
He's definitely metal.
Yeah. So we just complete this list with the Hellfire Goblins, who are like a mirror reflection from the prison realm of the Bar Goblins. You know, so it's horrible. I don't think he would go under Noglin here. He's kind of like one of the creatures that, hordes of creatures that came back with Arethyr. The same goes with the Malefar, who is the commander. But Malefar is a commander of multiple creatures that look like him, like flying blue demons. But he is kind of like a unique character. But I think we'll end with that.